Somebody requested the meeting be short, as do I. Yeah. That's my request.
Ask a question unless you want the answers.
Know the answer before
That's
you
right,
ask.
before you ask.
It's 6 o'clock. We're gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order. I'll go do a roll call. The end.
Travis Schaefer.
Bill Flint.
Tom Nugent? Bill Joel?
Sean Gabhart.
We have a 9-member board, so we do have a quorum. One of the things we are gonna do, we need to do, this is the first meeting that we've had since we reviewed the solar ordinance, where we're gonna do an election of officers. We'll need, at a minimum, to sign a certification. This is an advisory body, as you guys know, and this will go, whatever decision's made is merely advisory to the Board of Commissioners. So we have a certification ready that will need to be signed by a president and a secretary, and our typical officers are president, vice president, and secretary. So are there any motions on those specific offices? I believe Mr. Gabhart has been an officer in the past.
The president.
I'd so move that he, Chris.
I'll second. I'm bickering here and I thought I'd get out of here.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any other nominations? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, vice president and secretary. Anybody willing to serve in those roles?
Make a motion that Travis is vice president.
Okay,
I'm going to respectfully decline, being as this is my first meeting.
okay.
I'll take that.
Motion for Tom as vice president.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Who's willing to be secretary?
Can we nominate someone out here?
Well, they need to sign something tonight, so no.
Oh, no.
Bill, will you be secretary?
I guess I have to.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. John president. Tom vice president. Bill secretary. There are going to be a couple of people here. They said that they might be late, so. Old business. I have, what's the solar ordinance up here, if anybody would like to take a copy of that. It's also posted on the county website. At this point, Jen, it's my understanding that we do not have any applications for solar projects within the county. Okay, and there are a number of projects that are quite a bit of activity, but we haven't seen any that have applied for a permit at this time. If there's nothing else, we'll go ahead.
Grant, one question. Do you think the ordinance that we have has made a difference on the people that might look at our county or not?
There are a number of counties surrounding us where there are quite a bit of activity. I mean, Pike County and Knox County. We do have an application fee, and I think that until people are serious about doing a project, they probably don't want to pay the fee.
Okay.
So the standards that we have, if you guys recall, are slightly higher than what the state default standards are. So there could be something of a deterrent, but I don't know. I've seen and heard from a lot of different solar companies. I think it's only a matter. I think
The two people that called me have liked it,
Yeah.
yeah. Is that a part of the solar-friendly community?
We talked about trying to make ourselves a solar-friendly community, and there's a handful of steps you have to take.
But that wasn't a part of it?
I think we said that we want to be a part of it, but we haven't, like, jumped through the hoops to my,
Oh, that's my ask.
I know we talked about it, but I don't think we've jumped through the hoops yet. Anything else about solar? Let's jump into new business and the primary purpose of the meeting. It is 6:05. We're going to go ahead and open a public hearing related to rescission or partial rescission of the Daviess County zoning ordinance. We've got, what I've got in the agenda is just that there would be board comment first, and then we'll open it up to public comment, if that's okay. If you don't mind, sign in and then go to the podium to speak. We are being recorded, we're live. And it may be that there's discussion, but obviously just keep it friendly and professional, if you would. I'll open it up to the board. If the board doesn't want to speak immediately, go ahead and we'll start with public comment. Anything at all from the board?
Well, I think we need to kind of review what we've got. The town of Washington is incorporated out to 350 East, and between Washington and Montgomery, with the 2-mile jurisdictions, they almost touch at the golf course. So anything in Washington, Montgomery surrounding it is protected under the city of Washington's ordinance. I'm kind of here nor there on the repealing of it, but the town of Bowden, if they would get zoning, they could get 2-mile corporations. So the incorporated areas are protected, the ones that do have zoning, and the 2-mile jurisdictions. Kind of make that clear so everybody knows what would still be protected, whether we have zoning or not.
Yeah, the ordinance does say, I mean, at the very beginning, it only relates to the unincorporated areas and the areas that are outside of those 2-mile. That's important to think about. It has nothing to do with incorporated communities.
Grant, do you know what portion of the county that is?
Most of it, but I'm not.
I have never heard one complain about zoning, either for or against, and I'd like to hear some public input. Any of you guys have had any direct relation with it? I live up in Eleanor in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't bother me, but I could see why someone would want zoning. Honestly, I wouldn't want some things right next door to me or across the street. But that may be a deterrent for free enterprise, I don't know. So, waiting to hear some comment.
It's a part of the process in the 600 series. If we make any material changes to our current ordinance, we have to go through this process. We have to have a hearing. It goes to the Advisory Plan Commission. They make a recommendation via certification to the Board of Commissioners. And then, so it's anytime, so when we passed a zoning ordinance, we had to do this. If we make changes to it, we have to do this. The public hearing portion specifically. If anybody wants to, if there's no more board comment, we'll go ahead with public comment. Mr. Drewy?
I will lead off. How's that? Thanks. Few comments. I'll try to keep it within Grant's time constraints. So Bob Gruey, Daviess County Economic Development Corporation. I'm a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners, so you're in my sweet spot here in terms of planning. Big fan. Worked in community economic development for over 40 years and have seen the value of good growth with planning and zoning concerns. I actually worked for Lockmuller Group when they were up here in advance of I-69 being completed, where a lot of good people spent a lot of good time, a lot of important time crafting a very unique zoning ordinance that fit Daviess County. Matt Schriefer was our planner. He would come up, he'd come back, we'd ask him in the morning how'd it go. Well, they like this, don't like this, took this out, kept this in, moved this here. So just really crafted an ordinance, zoning ordinance that really fit with the interests of Daviess County. So we're fortunate to have that. Here in Indiana, 92 counties, I think there's only 10 that do not have a zoning ordinance, a plan commission, or a comprehensive plan. So we're in the majority in that regard. From the United States, it's estimated that 70 to 75% of counties have zoning code. Ones that don't are, most of them out west with big country that doesn't have a lot of concerns like this development. You know, if you want to control land use, my understanding, you have to have plan commission, zoning ordinance, comprehensive plan, sort of spelled out. You want to control solar projects, want to control anything like that, it goes through the plan commission and the zoning ordinance. Investors in economic development, they want certainty about development. They want certainty about what's going to happen next to them, about what's going to happen in the county. When we meet developers, maybe with some colleagues, and we talk about other counties and they don't have zoning, they just get this perplexed look. What do you mean they don't have zoning? But whatever. But I haven't heard anyone, for the most part, embrace that as a good thing. Again, developers want certainty. Crane, NSA Crane, one of the biggest economic engine in our area. For years now, they've been concerned about controlling their borders, their perimeter from growth and development. You know, if we were to adjust our zoning ordinance, weaken it by any means, I think it would send the wrong message to Crane. I know we don't border a lot of that, but I think, again, your zoning ordinance is a tool that we should be maybe advancing to some of the counties that don't, to help them understand you don't have to have a Bloomington ordinance. You don't have to have regulations on what color your front door is. These are just some good, solid backstops to make sure you got the growth you want. And again, your plan is built out of months and months and months of working with the community to get the kind of zoning ordinance we want and need. It reflects the interest of the citizens. Similarly, Westgate, we've just heard some wonderful announcements up there. We want to continue that momentum. We want to make sure that Westgate is done in an orderly manner, that the gateways, corridors coming in and out of Westgate have high quality development. The exit at Elnora and Odin, we're already seeing a little bit of interest there in some property. We want to make sure that it's developed in a way that Daviess County wants it to happen. We talked about your solar projects, and I agree. We're beginning to see interest in that space. Seems to be a function of landowners who want to participate, and getting to a substation seem to be the drivers there. So I agree with Grant. It's on the horizon. So I will wrap up and say, you know, we're blessed here in Daviess County with some wonderful strategic economic development resources in the form of strategic locations along I-69, proximate to Crane, Westgate. I think we should, you know, be sure that we keep these land use controls in place to make sure that we don't squander those opportunities, and that we realize the highest and best value that these resources can afford us. So there's some remarks. Thank you all.
Mr. Holder?
My name's Darren Holder. I'm on the Westgate Authority Board. I can't speak on behalf of the board, but as a member, I want to speak in the regards of, in terms of, as what Bob has already mentioned. Daviess County gets accolades when it comes to talking about encroachment issues, things relative to NSA Crane. And so I want to make sure that we continue to look at that. Westgate Authority through the White River Military Coordination Alliance and another organization worked a few years ago when I first came on to the authority to make sure and try to do some things with Crane to ensure from an encroachment standpoint and also just from a development standpoint around the base that there was some legislation put in place to actually create a 3-mile buffer so that in the case of any kind of development, not just in the Crane area, but also all through the whole perimeter of the base in all of the adjoining counties, that any kind of development, that Crane would have a voice in that. And so we worked with state legislators, and they actually passed a couple of laws. Senate, it was back in 2023, and I won't go into reading all of them, but specifically to allow counties to be able to include in their zoning ordinances the ability to identify that 3-mile buffer, and that it would be a cooperation between NSA Crane and the counties in terms of what was developed within that 3-mile buffer. We haven't pushed that with the counties hard in the last couple of years in terms of getting that incorporated into our ordinances, but it's something that we do need to look at and do. And again, the whole point and the whole reason behind it is for compatibility issues, because if somebody goes out and wants to build something right on, within a half a mile, a quarter of a mile from the Crane fence, is that going to be compatible with what's going on the base? And I think as county officials, we need to be aware of that and know and work and coordinate with Crane. As Bob emphasized, the importance of Crane in our local economy, it's just tremendous. Also, as a former school board member in the North Daviess community, again, I'm very concerned in terms of development along 69, especially up in that area. Obviously, with the school right there on that, very, very close to that intersection, we want to make sure that what gets developed and what gets put in that exchange area is compatible with our community and compatible, and something that from a school standpoint would be something we wouldn't have to worry about. And so, yes.
And we did talk about this. We've had like an adult business ordinance for 25 years. Predates zoning as well.
And just from a general as a citizen, I hate, in my mind, again, as Bob has shared with you in terms of counties, to me it would be a major step backwards for our county. We would look, like I say, we do get accolades. I know when we have Westgate meetings and we're talking about development, and we get into the topic of zoning, and Daviess County is always held in higher regards because of the fact that we do when most of the other counties associated with Westgate are not. So we do, and I would hate to see us move backwards in repealing any kind of zoning ordinance. So that's why. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holder. Ms. Goodwin?
Good evening. I have a letter to read from Jan Schuler-Hicks. She could not be here this evening. Her mom's in the hospital. She says, "Dear Advisory Plan Commission members, thank you for allowing my letter to be read during the meeting. I'm unable to attend, but wanted to make sure you hear my support of the current zoning ordinances in Daviess County. I support the work of the commission in developing the zoning ordinance and the careful consideration given to the language. Here are my points. Zoning protects property values by preventing incompatible land use from being adjacent to each other, ensuring community character and quality of life by controlling development patterns and managing growth, preserving natural resources, promoting public safety, and facilitating access to essential services by strategically locating different land uses like residential, commercial, and industrial areas within a community. It also helps to protect our pristine farm ground, as evidenced by the support of the Indiana Farm Bureau for zoning which we have in 80 of the 92 counties. Zoning allows Daviess County residents to have a say in how their neighborhoods are developed, preventing unwanted changes like large industrial complexes from being built next to residential areas. Remember the creosote plant. Well-planned zoning can attract businesses and investments by creating predictable and desirable developmental areas. It is essential for the development of Westgate. While zoning is important, it should be implemented thoughtfully to avoid overly restrictive regulations that stifle development and innovation. I believe you have done just that in developing a zoning light approach. While I agree that zoning ordinances should be regularly reviewed and updated to reflect changing community needs and development trends, it should be done with the collaboration and careful consideration of all stakeholders involved and not the whim of a newly elected official, Dan Hicks. So that was her letter. And then just from myself, I worked in the auditor's office for 10 years. I work with Century 21, sell real estate, visit a lot of different counties. A lot of what we see when people come in with problems, I will tell you, all wars start over land inherently. It's in every country. There's no culture that's immune to it, ours included. And the problem is where my rights stop a millimeter away, someone else's begin. My take on it is just, you know, some of the things I've seen over the 10 years I've been here. I personally feel like it could be tightened up just a little bit more. And like Grant said, some of these unincorporated places, like even Odin especially, I think a lot of things that I particularly have seen come out of Odin and the Odin area with the racetrack, the creosote plant. There is an individual and several individuals that I've heard of that keep moving land and changing how water flows, whether that falls within you guys or not, you know, maybe it should. We've got neighbors with water getting dumped on them because somebody moved a bunch of earth and changed how everything sits. Several people come in talking about things like that. I know just around our campfire one night, I learned about a cell phone tower that was coming in, and they had already signed papers and everything, and airport didn't even know about it, you know, so.
That's regulated by the zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Yeah, but just stuff like that, you know, I've seen personally. I don't know, you know, I alerted the airport and let them know, and he'd gotten something from the FAA, but didn't really know, this was probably 5 years ago, what exactly it was. Also, like the solar fields and stuff of that nature, our family owns collectively over 350 acres, and a lot of it will probably be looked at for some of those solar fields and surrounding areas. I do have concerns about our value of our land when stuff like that comes in. I've shown properties up there by Crane where the solar field went in, and you know, it's a deterrent when you're trying to sell a house and you have all these residential areas with stuff like that coming in. So I feel like people feel safer knowing that you guys exist and knowing that things have to kind of go through a process and they're not going to just get something thrust upon them. So thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Goodwin. Mr. Toohey? Okay. McGuire?
I'm Bob McGuire, and I serve on the Board of Zoning Appeals, which is a function of the Zoning Commission, appointed by the commissioners, the council, and the zoning board itself. I've served on it for 10 years. I served with a couple of gentlemen here, Phil and Travis, are on our board now. And like I said, I've been on for 10 years, and I've, since the beginning of it, and I'm the only remaining original member of it now. But over the years, I have found, just as the gentleman has said here, the benefits of having a zoning ordinance. When we have people come in, they want a variance for what the zoning ordinance says. So we're the ones that grant them the variances. And we have different, a lot of different requirements that setbacks and things such as that. And over the years, I know of very few people that we have actually turned down because of what they were wanting to do with their piece of property. And the thing that always makes me feel good over the years is when you bring in, say, the turkey houses that go in that has to be a special use in our county. They have to come in to get their permit. And of course, there's generally a few people come in that don't really want turkey houses in their backyard. So we go over back and forth. Each side gets to tell what they want to do and what they'd like to see done. And most times, there's been a couple of times maybe over the 10 years, but most times those two groups come together with a decision. We've had turkey houses, and a lady lived across the street and she didn't like the looks of it, or just didn't want to see it, and the farmer said, how about if I plant some trees in front of my turkey houses? That'd be fine. They both left here feeling good or better about the situation. And I think that's what's important. Instead of, like we say, people want to do what they want to do with their land, but if they can get those agreements here before they ever build something, then I think that's a big plus. The other thing, the county highway, for instance, they have narrow right-of-ways in the county. And there'll be people come in and they'll want to put their house closer to the road, or put it actually as close as what maybe our ordinance says they can, but then the county says, well, we want to widen this road in a few years. So if possible, could you set your house back another 10 or 15 feet so that we can improve that road in front of your house and make it nicer and put in ditches? And they all say, sure, let's do that. So there's a lot of compromise. Like I said, we've had very, very few, we've had a couple of heated meetings, but other than that, I just feel really good about what the ordinance has done for our county. And I think it's very important to have some, I don't like to say control over the land, but at least some people have a say about what can be done with their land. So I think it's a very important thing. And I think, as they said earlier, I think our ordinance is very, very designed for our community. We've always gone in with agriculture as first in our county, and we don't want to we try not to keep agricultural from developing. I know we even have a letter that has to go out to a new home builder that says, you know, if you build this new house, you're going to may have a turkey house go in behind you. They have to sign off on that before they can build out in the county. And I think, Paula, I wish the realtors would do the same thing when they resell a house. But that's another can of worms. But anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Bob, I can't believe it. No, somebody would complain about a turkey house. That's amazing. I wasn't going to speak tonight, and I'm going to be brief. I did prepare some written comments, though, because I think that was what it said in the announcement. So first of all, I want to thank this commission for your volunteer hours and the BZA for their volunteer hours. People don't realize it takes a lot of commitment from you all to make this program work, and I appreciate the job you do. I'm uniquely qualified to accurately assess and comment on zoning because I worked for Purdue for 38 years and was directly involved in trying to build turkey houses across the county and surrounding counties. Also, I've been a Madison Township resident for 37 years, and now I'm an elected official. Turkey houses. When zoning first came in, I was the operations manager for the live production, and I'm like, we will not get another turkey house built in Daviess County. And if we did, it'd be full of red tape and all kind of problems. Like Bob said earlier, we have to go through confined feeding permits on a state level. About half of our farms do. Half of them don't, but we do have to do the local zoning because the ordinance is here. And quite frankly, I was amazed. Our problems became less, actually, due to zoning because we had a third party in there that mediated the difference between the property owners. And some, you could put them out in the Amish area, you're not gonna have any problems. But the one that Bob was mentioning was north of Odin. Our competitor had put a farm in right next to her, within 700 feet from her back porch. And when we went to build one, which was actually over a quarter-mile away, she could see it, she complained about it. And I was impressed the way the BZA operated, and that was really the only one that we really had thought we'd have significant problems, and built the farm. I followed up with the lady 3 years in a row at Christmas, gave her a turkey, and she never had one bad thing to say about that, the fellow that's across the road from her. So I felt good about that. Somebody commented several years ago, the Daviess County Economic Development Corporation was trying to get a business outside of Odin. The thing was totally unacceptable to the people from Odin. I don't know one person that actually supported it. And because of the BZA, we were able to get together, have public meetings, and the thing was turned down. And that's the way it should have been. Other aspects, and I'm not sure about this, Crystal would have to tell you for sure, but I think when you have to get these permits and things to build, I think it helps from a property tax standpoint, getting those properties on the tax rolls. And I think that's critical, and it helps everybody in the county because it gets those things on the tax rolls when they're supposed to be on there, not waiting for assessment and those type of things. It's more fair for everybody. We already heard about the crane thing. I was going to talk about that, but I don't need to because it's so obvious why we do need some type of zoning there. I hear people say that our neighboring counties don't have it, and we don't need it either because of problems. And I don't see problems. I see just benefits from it. And like Darren said, I think the other counties could actually benefit from having some type of thing like that. We talked about the wind farms and, or solar, sorry, the solar things. We've had a lot of interest in those, 3 different companies that I know that I have talked with on behalf of the county. And I'm not sure we're actually quite strict enough on what we're doing there, but it certainly hasn't been a deterrent from them coming in our zoning laws. I'm not in support of overreaching government regulations, but I fully am supportive of the common sense zoning that exists in Daviess County today. Thank you.
So the creosote plant, that was the last the last time we had more than 5 people at a meeting as the advisory plan commission. And a couple of these board members were on that body at the time, but it was a unanimous decision about not rezoning a specific parcel. That's the big victory. Okay. Bob?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Paula Potts with Century 21. I've been a realtor there for over 30 years. So we have looked at when investors come to town, that's one of the first things. I agree with everything. Actually, Bob just took all away my speech and made it. I mean, he did a great job, Bob. But I ditto everything he said. Zoning is the #1 thing they want to look at because they're very concerned about that. Also, another thing I wanted to say was property owners are very concerned about zoning too. You live out in the country because you want the freedom, whatever, to get away from city life, but you really too want somebody, some kind of zoning to eliminate some of the eyesores or whatever you want to say it, whether it be turkey barns, sorry, or whatever. Anyway, whatever it may be, from coming next to you. And so, if you want to keep property values in the county, you definitely need to have some kind of zoning. I'm just all for the zoning. So, anybody have any questions or anything? Okay. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Crystal Ostby, the county assessor. I'm going to talk about it in a little different light than everyone else does or has, although I agree with everything that's been said. I've got a report, a yearly summary here from the City of Washington on their permitting process, and I heard one of the commissioners say, we don't want the zoning to be a mechanism to pick up assessed value. It is not a mechanism to pick up assessed value, but they do work hand in hand. They do go together. You know, they have to file a permit to build a new house, new garage, commercial industrial properties. In this summary, just the first line says new residences. They did 62 new houses, 62 permits in last year. And then I heard one of the commissioners ask, what are we getting for our money? If we're paying the employee that does this job $75,000, we're not paying her $75,000 a year, but whatever she's paying plus her benefits, $75,000 a year, what are we getting out of it? If the average tax bill in Daviess County is $2,000, at 62 houses, that's $124,000 a year in income, okay? That's just new residences. She did 36 accessory buildings, 10 commercial buildings, and several other permits that didn't, doesn't affect this. But my point is, what we're getting with our money is covered. We're making our money back in just new homes. Just in the last month, in particular, we found in my office a $2 million commercial industrial property that had never been picked up. That has been there for at least since 2021. $2 million. So that's my point. If we don't have the permits, we don't see those permits, we may not get that assessed value put on the rolls. We have reassessment, that's once every 4 years. Your area gets reassessed once every 4 years. If you build a new house and we don't know about it, you will go 3 years without paying on it. Now, to my next point, if you build a new house, that tax burden is shifted to all of your neighbors. If Sean builds a new house and I don't know about it, all of his neighbors pay for that burden. I think that's all I really wanted to point out was, that we by far cover the cost of that $75,000. Any questions? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Bryant Niehoff. I'm with the group called the Uplands Science and Technology Foundation, or USTF. We manage the Westgate Crane Technology Park for the Westgate Authority. Work very closely with Bob and many of you here. So I'm also a certified planner, so go zoning, right? So yeah, just blanket statement. But I would start with a couple of points. I guess I'm going to make three. And the first of which is about Westgate, and right, that's been covered. I'm not going to hit on that. Just ditto. We most certainly need protections up there at Westgate Crane. Many of you have probably heard that we have a new process up there with architectural review, with covenants, codes, conditions, and restrictions. However, that is a private matter. It's not necessarily a blanket protection for the public, right? It's more a financial mechanism of how to address public needs up at Westgate at Crane without having a municipality, right? So as Westgate continues to grow, think of the needs for street lights, think of the needs for maintaining signage. We're having signage that is being installed as we speak up at Westgate at Crane. With the Tri-County Technology Park and not a municipality. We don't have a town council, an additional tax in which they can maintain those public uses. Those covenants, conditions, and restrictions are in place to address that with assessments, right? So think of it that way. They do have development standards, but that is really over just the remaining property, most of the remaining property in Daviess County, most certainly not all of it. And if you have been up in the area, you probably seen some post-frame buildings that have been built right in front of, actually one of our newer tenants within the park has put those up in a hurry as they have been working to expand. However, they did not have the covenants, conditions, and restrictions against that property, and the zoning, unfortunately, did permit that in a technology park that we are wanting to be at a level of Research Triangle Park, Cummings Research Park, these first-class technology and research parks across the nation. And when we bring folks in, that's what they see, right? So I would honestly argue at Westgate, we need to go in the opposite direction and taking a more stringent look at what the future holds and the type of investment that we are working to attract up in the technology park. The other point, kind of switching hats here, as a Daviess County resident, I live in Montgomery. Raising my family there, we are obviously surrounded by agriculture, and my family is steeped in agriculture. It's very near and dear to my heart. And I actually come from rural Rush County, which has a population in the entire county of about the size of Washington, so keep that in mind, right? Much bigger place here. And there, they had agricultural friendly zoning, had the support of Indiana Farm Bureau. Same that I've heard here from conversations of when the zoning was put in place, and I would just echo what Darren, Bob, others have said about Daviess County getting accolades for having ag-friendly light zoning, right? And I had the point of, I think Bob made the comment about the certification. If you're wanting to build a home in an agricultural area, that you have to acknowledge that you're going to hold those agriculturalists harmless, right? In the event that, yeah, there's a lot of dust in the evenings, in harvest season. There's combines going at midnight, right? You're not going to file those complaints, where in most of our communities that do not have zoning, you will get that, right? That's very common, and actually creates challenges for our farmers. So lastly, the point, kind of shifting from the agriculture, and that zoning is actually in place to protect our agricultural property, I'm going to shift to more of like the fiscal impact. So obviously property taxes are a big topic across the state of Indiana, and maximizing how efficiently we're using our government resources, right, and our tax dollars. That's across the state, certainly at the federal level, and it impacts what we're doing here locally as well. I will say without zoning, you don't have a mechanism to, one, allocate areas where you're going to prioritize industrial or commercial development, and therefore I think it was mentioned earlier about the turkey barn scenario, where if you build a turkey barn, or let's use maybe a more appropriate example of an industrial facility down a rural road, gravel road, then those residents along that road start to get impacted, right? The highway department gets called out because of the complaints. Lo and behold, our highway department is paving and widening that road, right? So you have a rural road that would have been fine, right? It's a gravel road with a few homes along it, but now we've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into these situations, right? Of where we could have, if we were more intentional with zoning, with our comprehensive planning, with our allocating of resources, we could have targeted those resources into particular areas that could maximize the benefit for multiple businesses, not just a handful, right? So I think that's important to consider, that zoning also directly ties to a community's fiscal health, right, and the fiscal policies that our leaders are developing. So that's all I'll say. Happy to answer any questions. Appreciate you all being here. I know it's an incredibly tough job, what you're doing, and I support all that you're doing, and happy to chat if you have any questions. Thank you.
Anybody else for public comment? Sprinkle?
Let you sign my thing. Real quick, Mike Sprinkle, I'm landowner in the northern part of the county and also county councilman. I echo the sentiments of what I've heard here tonight from these folks. I also want to thank all of you for doing what you do on this board. And also want to thank Commissioner Keith back here for trying to get his arms around and trying to learn as much as he can about the issues at hand in Daviess County. And I really wish the other two commissioners could have been here tonight to heard that, but hopefully they can play it back and see the comments that are being made here. But when we first started talking about zoning, when I-69 was being built, I leaned on a friend of mine who was president of the Indiana Farm Bureau at the time and asked him, what about zoning? And the only thing I really remember out of that conversation was, if you do it right, zoning is really a good thing for you. And I know Grant and Lockmiller and several entities, this thing went back and forth, and we took this out, and we added this, and I really feel like that we got our zoning down right, because some of you mentioned earlier, complaints are not very few, if any. As an elected official, I've had 0 complaints about zoning, and that tells me one thing. It tells me we've got it right. And lastly, I would encourage you all, as the APC board, to make the recommendation to the commissioners that you don't want to change what we've got here in Daviess County. Thank you.
Anybody else? So we did get a report from the city. I'm going to read this into the record if that's okay. In 2024, we had 176 compliance reviews, 62 new residences, 36 accessory buildings, 10 commercial buildings, 3 variance applications, 1 special use application, 63 additional items, either additions, accessory buildings, or signs that did not require any sort of payment, and then 1 sign that apparently did require payment. So in 2024, the amount of fees that were collected on that were $5,860. They've been a very good partner. I think the city's done a good job for us. It's been over 5 years ago that the county surveyor at the time and myself went to the city and asked them if they would continue to do what they were doing, because they didn't feel like they were. So that's a contract that exists between the county and the city to serve as the plan director, and they have done a good job. So 176 total compliance reviews, of which so 63 that didn't require any payment, and the rest of those there was some payment related to that. That's all. Any other public comment? No other comment from the board? Anybody on the board wants to speak? So we do have a zoning ordinance certification regarding the rescission of the zoning ordinance. Do a basic vote, and all this is, so people don't get excited, all this is a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners.
I do have one question for Brian. The CCRs that are in place at the tech park, do they or do they not regulate what type of businesses go in there?
So it's very general, right? Because honestly, we took a look at Daviess County zoning ordinance, didn't want to duplicate it in any way, shape, or form. So it does have some very, like, I would say your extreme types of situations, but not near to the degree that the zoning ordinance does.
And he They had a buffer area around it too, or not?
So I want to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, I want to say that maybe the buffer area mentions are more particularly related to the installation itself. So in state statute, there is a 3-mile buffer area around the installation that technically any type of development or economic development project, so tax abatement, tax increment financing, new building addition, the base commander needs to be notified. It's actually in state statute. So I think what the comments have been made earlier is that there is a recommendation from the White River Military Coordination Alliance directly to work with county plan commissions to integrate that language into our local ordinances, just so that connection's made, right? Because if you don't work in this stuff day to day, then oftentimes it can be overlooked unless you're poring over state statute, which I can't imagine any of us are. So,
Is there a board up there that when somebody comes in and wants to do something non-compliant, the board meets?
for the installation,
Yeah.
you know, I'm honestly not sure of what the installations process is. I know on our end, and well, statutorily, the decision is the commander's, so Commander Martinez. But I would say from our end, and we handle this through our architectural review process up at Westgate. There's the groundbreaking on the Kratos facility. That'll be March 18th. For that, when that happens, we will notify the community planning liaison officer, CPLO, for the base. He will inform the commander, and I believe they have 14 days to get back and say yes or no. And essentially what they're looking for there is just anything that would challenge their mission, right? So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. All right, thank you. Yeah.
Got about 45 seconds.
One thing I wanted to mention, over the years, we've had we have a lot of Amish in our community, and we've had, every time that the son wants to build a new house behind his father's house, back the lane, they've had to come in and get a variance because we only allowed, the ordinance only said you had to have so much frontage. So we did several of those, and what I, there again, felt good about, the zoning board recognized that, and they changed their ordinance to allow that. So, you know, they're an important part of our community, and I just thank the board for, you know, instead of us having to give variances every time they come in, now all they have to do is go get their permit and they can build. So it saves everybody a lot of hassle.
Questions from the board? Okay, I'm going to read this certification just so you guys can see it here. If there's no other comment, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, if that's okay. I, Phil Jolliffe, Secretary of the Davis County Advisory Plan Commission, do hereby certify to the Commissioners of Davis County that a rescission of the zoning ordinance was considered by the Davis County Advisory Plan Commission at their meeting held on February 27, 2025, by a vote of blank in favor, blank against, blank abstaining, and blank absent, and do herewith forward the same to you for your consideration and approval, signed by the Secretary and the President. So, if you would, Mr. President, have a ayes or nays, if that's okay. Then we'll sign the certification. That'll become part of the record, and we'll go to the commissioners.
Call it out.
We'll do a roll call vote. Tony, you're on the board too.
Aye. I asked if I could sit back here. Do you need?
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. Okay.
You did say push it, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't know that for sure either. I'm going to abstain.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
I'm against
I
rescission.
have that question too. Okay,
Yeah.
so is everybody?
Yes.
Clarify
Yeah.
that what a yay vote is and what a nay vote is.
Weird.
So, this is about a rescission of the zoning ordinance. So, a yay in favor of rescission would be to do away with our existing zoning ordinance. A nay would be to keep status quo. Mr. Schaefer?
Nay.
Mr. Flint?
Nay.
Nay.
Mr. Nugent? Mr. Jolly?
Abstain.
Ms. Brackney?
Nay.
Mr. Gabhart?
Nay.
Halter?
Nay.
Mr. Dungeon? So we have 7 nays against, 1 abstention, and 1 that's absent. That sound right? Request a motion of your approval of the certification to the commissioners. Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We'll go ahead and send that certification to the commissioners and request a motion on adjournment.
Move.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thanks, guys.
It's over with.